I mean, the organization Whispering Roots that I started as an idea is absolutely growing. We're getting too big, so we're bringing so many people through. We need to get our own building and build some larger systems so we can accommodate more requests for tours. So we're in the process of looking for a space to take Whispering Roots, which is my nonprofit, so we can really get that going, which is going to be really nice. It'll be nice for people coming for tours. It'll be nice for more school students, things like that. So we really try to be ecologically friendly here. You know, we like to be environmentally friendly. So with our system that we're going to show you today, we try not to waste anything. We try to waste as little as humanly possible. So not only do we run aquaponics here, but then we also do composting. So when we harvest our grow beds, and I'll show you, talk to you about that, but every time we harvest, there's going to be a portion of our harvest that we can't use. There's the yellow leaves, things on the bottom that don't get any light that we can't eat. But instead of throwing that away, we actually send that to a compost bin, and I'll show you that right here. It's right here. This is actually a compost bin. So we keep compost worms in here. So instead of throwing out all of that lettuce or whatever else we don't have arugula that we can't use, we toss it in here. And our compost worms, which are living down in here, they like to eat it. There's a bunch of them in here somewhere. There's a few there. There's probably a bunch over here because I just fed them. But these are compost worms. And so what they do, when we throw any of our organic waste into this compost bin, it might be leaves, it might be banana peels. They love bananas. These little guys go to town and they eat all of that waste that we would normally have thrown into the landfill. They eat it and they turn it into this, which is called compost. These are worm castings. This is some of the best natural fertilizer around. So people pay good money for this. So we call this black gold. So what people used to throw away, you know, we now take it and turn it into cash. And this stuff, instead of throwing this out, we take this and you put it into, say, raised beds. And this is some of the best fertilizer around. So our raised beds that we have outside, the plants grow nice, clean, and healthy based upon these worm castings that come from what would have been discarded food. And then also you see these little clay pellets. These are out of our aquaponics system. I'll show you those over there. But when we harvest, after we pull our root balls out, our root balls are wrapped around our growing media, which are these clay pellets. We throw this all into the compost bin. The worms eat everything around it that's organic, leaving nothing but the clay pellets behind. Then we come back through, we sift that, we take the worm castings, so we can package that and sell it or put it in our grow beds, and then we recapture our clay pellets, we sanitize them, we put them back in the grow system. So we don't waste anything.
Is that a specific type of worm?
Red wigglers.
Red wigglers.
Mm-hmm. That's what we use.
I was telling you guys, I have about maybe that size in my apartment that has a plastic bin, and I compost with the red wigglers in my apartment. So it can be done on a small scale. Mine is actually just a little smaller. It's like a 10-gallon plastic bin that I just use for my apartment.
In our food cultivation class, we gave him one.
Oh yeah, and I have red wigglers. So if you, I give them out. I give them to you guys if you want them.
And these little guys, you know, if you're feeding them right, they multiply like you wouldn't believe. So, you know, every 3 or 4 months or so, you can almost double the size of your population, depending on how much you're feeding them. But they're also smart. They won't outgrow their environment. So if you're not feeding them a lot, they just stop laying eggs. So they'll never outgrow their environment.
And then I put a little bit of the dirt in my water that I feed my plants.
Very nice, isn't it? And that's we'll talk about that as well with our aquaponics system, because not only do we have worms here, but we have compost worms in our grow bed. So when we pump our water out of our fish tank that has some of the fish waste in it, that goes into the grow bed and the worms eat it, and which becomes worm castings, which becomes worm tea, which provides more nutrients for our plants. So that's how we do it. And speaking of smaller containers, this is also a worm bin. And that's just the basic, you know, 15-gallon whatever storage tote that we found at one of the local places and turned it into a worm bin. All right, so these little guys here, any questions on the composting? If you think about it, by all means, ask me. These little guys here, these are actually tilapia. We grow tilapia in our aquaponic system. A very good fish, a very hardy fish. Grows very fast. Depending upon how much you're feeding them, we can get these little guys to market in about 9 months. So sometimes earlier, 6 to 9 months, depending upon how much you feed them, how clean your water is, that type of thing, how robust your system is. But these little guys grow very fast. They eat a lot, and they do a great job of converting their food to meat, which is another reason why we like to use them. And they make really good fillets. You can see the body shape. These guys get bigger. They're going to make for a nice fillet size, nice fillet shape, and that'll be something that you guys will have a chance to see as your fish start to grow. But I just pulled some of these out of our tank so you can get a closer chance to see them. You know, I talk about us trying to be environmentally friendly and reuse items. You know, one of the tenets of Whispering Roots, my nonprofit, is to make use of what we have that's readily available. Because when we go into some of these communities, they don't have a lot of money, so they can't spend millions of dollars building these systems. So we try and show them how they can build these systems using materials that are available at your local hardware store, your Lowe's, Home Depot, things like that, stuff that you might have laying around the house. like this bin. This is all just made out of, you know, regular construction lumber. This is a tank that we had. You see our filter. This filter would normally cost you maybe $300, $350 to build. We built this out of a leftover tote. We got some plastic tubing, a small pump, some grow media that we use, some excess media we put in there as our biofilter, and we turned this into a very large biofilter. So all this water is being cleaned by what used to be a leftover tote. We pump the water right in there, it gets nice and clean, the fish are happy, and the water stays nice and healthy, and we get this type of growth. And these little guys, one of the reasons why we like to put a lot of tilapia in a tank, because if you don't, they like to fight over little corners of the tank. Like, see this guy? Now he's trying to defend this corner of the territory. That guy over there, he's taking over the flower pot, and he's going to defend that. When we put lots of fish in the tank, then they won't fight because there's not a lot of room. But these little guys, they'll fight all day. They eat and fight. That's what they do. So, but these guys, that's what they do.
That little guy is intimidated by anything that goes with the tank.
Yes, and then you have this guy who just likes to chase everybody around. So he'll defend his corner near the pump. I don't know. So I pull these out so you guys can get a closer look. We have some bigger ones over here. We have some smaller ones as well. So we'll take a look at that. Any question about the tank?
How old are these ones?
These little guys? No, that's fine. These guys are probably about 3.5, 4 months old. So, and they would be bigger if I was feeding them more, but we're not feeding them as much as we could possibly feed them to make them bigger because of the size of our system. And so, you know, we have nice filtration there, but we don't want to overfeed them. Yes, they are. But the funny thing is, you'll see a difference. You see these guys fighting here. We'll show you our fingerling tank where we have about 500 fish, and you're going to see that they don't fight like that. When you put them in mass, then they tend to respect each other. When you give them a little bit of room to fight, then they fight. So,
Like people.
like people, yeah.
Are they all the same age?
About 500 tilapia fingerlings. These little guys, you know, they love their space. They eat lots. This is a 150-gallon tank, but we probably only have about 80 gallons in there right now. So with this one, since we have more fish in the system, we had to create a different type of filter. This is actually called a vortex filter. The reason why we call it a vortex filter, because as the water comes up out of the system here through our pump, inside this tank, which this is a recycled tank. It used to hold tomato paste or chopped tomatoes. So this tank costs us about $10, $15 to buy. If you buy these brand new, then they cost you about $95 or $100. So we got this from a food production company that typically they throw them out instead of recycling. We got it for about 10 or 15 bucks. But it's a vortex filter. So what happens is as the water comes into the tank, we have a piece inside the tank basically that has two ends like this. And I'm just going to show you. The water comes in through the pipes, comes out this way, and it causes a vortex, causes a swirl. It's also known as a swirl filter. So what that does is as any waste comes up, it swirls inside the filter. The vortex action causes it to drop to the bottom of the tank, and then we have a release on the bottom. We have a gauge that all we have to do is open the valve, and it sucks any of the heavy waste right out of the bottom of the tank. And then that keeps any of the waste from accumulating within the system. And then we also have beneficial bacteria that lives in here that converts any of that waste, that ammonia, nitrates and nitrates for the system, which helps keep our water nice and clean. So that's how we can get 500 fish in this very small tank without having to worry about filtration. So it works really well. And once again, readily available parts, PVC, stuff that just came from Lowe's and Depot Menards, or stuff that was going to be thrown out that we just take and redesign it and use it for our needs. All about being sustainable. And then we use these also for our makeup water for the system. We pump water out of our faucet, put it in these tanks, and then when we need makeup water, we can pump it directly into the system. So that's kind of part of the process of what we do, which leads us all the way up to our actual aquaponics. So everything that we've seen so far is designed to help us support this wonderful thing known as aquaponics, which is also what we like to call a fountain of youth for plants. So and we're kind of in between crops right now. Normally when the class comes through, we have the really big lettuce. I mean, extreme size, everything. Lettuce is grown into here. I had actually harvested this out. I did leave a few basil plants in for you to see, so you can see how big they get, and I'm going to show you the difference between how big they grow in the system versus how big they grow normally. But everything here is all natural. So we don't use any synthetics in our system. Everything is grown off of, you know, just natural minerals and things like that, micronutrients. And this system itself is called a flood and drain system. So basically what happens is we have this tank, a 150-gallon tank, and in this tank we have tilapia, and in this particular tank we have probably about 85 tilapia or so, 75 or 85 somewhere in there. We pump the water out of this fish tank up into our grow bed, and when we're talking about those clay pellets earlier. This is called hydrogen. It's nothing but expanded clay. You can touch it if you want. It's really lightweight. It has great surface area. So we flood this grow bed to about 8 inches. It's a 10-inch grow bed. We flood it to about 8.5 inches, which prevents us from getting any algae growth up on top. And what we have in the middle, this is called a bell siphon. So we flood the water up to about 8 inches, and in the middle of this grow bed, underneath this bell, is a standpipe that looks like this. I don't know if you can see that, if everybody can see it. So that standpipe sits right in the middle of our grow bed, and as the water floods up to about the 8.5 inch level, the water begins to overflow our standpipe. As it goes through the standpipe, it creates a suction effect, it creates a siphon effect, which is the purpose of the bell. And as that siphon effect kicks in, it sucks all the water out down to about 1 inch level again, which drains our grow bed, which draws oxygen into our grow bed, which allows our plant roots to breathe, which keeps our plants nice and healthy, which also filters our water. So as the water comes in and hits this hydrogen, we have beneficial bacteria that lives on these pellets, and that beneficial bacteria takes our ammonia and our fish waste and it converts that into nitrates for the plants, which the plants love nitrate. So the plant sucks up all that nice healthy nitrate, that plant food, which cleans our water for us. And once the water is clean, it reaches the 8.5 inch level, overflows the standpipe. That clean water is then automatically sucked right out of the grow bed, back into the tank nice and clean, and our fish are happy. So it's a closed loop system. We don't do any outside filtration. The only water that we add to the system is top-off water, which is any water that's been absorbed by our plants or any water that has evaporated. We keep the tank covered so we get very low evaporation rates. So it's a very efficient system. As you can see, it grows really well. These are very young plants. The plants that you see right here, actually, this is lettuce. This is an experiment that we were running. You might be able to see that this is like a broken stalk torn apart. We actually stripped all of these plants basically down to the core. So all that was left was like these little stems. And this was just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. We stripped them down to their stems to see if it would grow back. You know, people were saying we could get 2, 3, maybe 4 crops out of this. So we stripped them off. So if you'd have come in here about 2 weeks ago, all you would have saw were a lot of stalks like this with pieces hanging off. But then all this has grown back in 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
That's 2 weeks worth of growth. And I'll show you there are more stems like this in there that are broken and torn. We didn't even do anything special. All we did was come through with our hands because we wanted to see what would happen. We try and beat our system up. We try and make it hurt to see how robust it is. So we stripped them off, didn't do anything to them, just left them alone. 2 weeks worth of growth. It's all back, nice, clean, green, and healthy. Every little bit of it. And it's actually very good tasting. So this is an experiment that we're running. The basil that you see here, normally we harvest our basil sooner than this, but I heard that the class was coming. Chef Garvey told me you guys were coming, so I left some of this in there. We don't normally let it get this big because then we have to raise the lights and the rest of the plants don't get light. But I thought you'd like to see what it looks like when everything grows. So I left that there. Let me grab this tray over here from behind you guys. So this is some basil as well. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. So if you look at this basil, yeah, we got these little guys here that they're kind of growing. We give them some fish water every once in a while. We give them a little bit of light. This basil and that basil are the same plants.
Wow.
The basil that you see here came out of this seedling tray, and I like to do this as an example for the students so you guys get an understanding of just how powerful the system is. If you look in the tray, when you get a chance to, there are all these empty slots. These seedlings were put into this system. They came out right out of this tray. So these plants are the same age. 100% the same age. That's how powerful the system is. That's why we call it the fountain of youth for plants, because these guys were germinated at the same time. They came out of the same seedling tray. They get the same water, but when you put them in the system, this type of explosive growth happens. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, these little guys look good. They taste good. I mean, they're small, but same exact plants. That's the type of growth that you can experience. That's why aquaponics is basically the next frontier. I mean, it's been around for a while, but people are just starting to understand the power of what we can do. Because everything grows big, clean, green, and healthy. And we'll also let you guys taste some of that. I mean, now, and as we've actually even been pulling leaves off to try and, get them shorter. 2 days ago, these leaves right here, these plants, see this? Just so you know that I'm telling the truth, I broke these plants off a few days ago. 2 or 3 days ago, I broke the plants off so that they wouldn't go up into the light, and all this growth took place after I broke the plants off.
Oh, really?
There, you can see it for yourself. You can touch it if you want. You can see where I broke the plants off to try and get them out of the lights, and they all grew back right into the plants.
Right there, yeah.
You can see them in there. You'll see broken stalks. None of that growth up there was there a few days ago. It just exploded after I took them off. So We'll let you smell it. We'll let you taste it all. This is lettuce that we're running. Some of you can smell it already. This is lettuce. Lettuce grows very clean, green, and healthy in here as well. One thing that you'll notice, we had a nice little experiment with the last class that was here. You know, I had 2 classes ago, a class came through, and we had a bunch of lettuce growing. And so right after that class left, we harvested all the lettuce. I took some of the lettuce and I just put it in Tupperware, and I shoved it in the refrigerator. Then another class came through maybe about a month later. It's about a month later. We pulled that same lettuce out of the refrigerator when the class came through and let the class taste it. It was a month old in the refrigerator and still good after a month. You don't get that with any type of lettuce that you get out of the store. You might get a few days. The lettuce here is so clean and so healthy that literally you can harvest it, put it in the refrigerator, come back a month later and eat it. And it's still good. Still good. That's the power of the system. And this stuff, this is just now reaching what we like to call our critical mass with its roots. We reach critical mass, you suddenly start to see explosive growth. When we transplant the plants, we put them in the system for a few days, they just kind of sit there, they don't do anything. And then you start to see new growth that comes in, and then as the root population expands, the root ball gets bigger, suddenly you get this expansive growth. So from now on, every day when we come down, these plants will be bigger and bigger and bigger overnight. We'll raise the lights, you come in the next morning, they've grown up into the lights. That's how powerful it is because they receive nutrients 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We can harvest lettuce, you know, basically depending upon what brand or what type you're growing, somewhere between 25 and 42 days every time. We just keep turning the crops. If you just want like baby lettuce and things like that, we can do that about every 25 days. Yeah. And then for your full grown, some plants that would normally take somewhere around 52 days, we can normally turn that in about 42 days. So we save about 10 days worth of growth, which in terms of having crop turnover is huge. If you're saving 10 days of growth every single time, imagine how many additional crops you can get in a year. All right.
Are you using special bulbs for the system?
No,
or?
there's no special bulbs. I mean, these are right off the shelf over at Menards and Home Depot. I mean, you might see 2 purple lights that are like grow lights, but those are right off the shelf. But the rest, we don't even really need those. We just put them in there because we like to try different things. We like to do research. But most of our systems, and you'll see over there, there are no purple, there are no grow lights. These are all just full spectrum lights. Because part of what we do is we try and teach people how to grow things sustainably and how to build these systems using readily available materials. So everything that you see here, this is all off-the-shelf stuff that you buy at Home Depot, Menards, maybe a couple things that we got online like our heater and our pump. But the rest of the stuff, these light bulbs are just full spectrum bulbs right off the shelf. So you don't have to pay $500 for a grow light. You know, this is probably like $85, something like that. And then we buy the bulbs. So it depends upon what you're using, what type of materials you're using to build your system. But the system works great. We just started growing kale. Someone asked us about kale. So we hadn't grown kale before. So we germinated a little kale, and this is our first kale plant right here. And I'll show you the difference between what grows in the system. We have kale over there, and what happened when we put it, what grows in our seedling trays, and what happens when we put it in the system. But this kale is going to make one heck of a crop. I mean, look. You see this? It's absolutely fantastic. The color is just incredible. And that's just nothing but nutrient right there. That's nothing but healthy goodness. So we have a feeling that that little guy is going to try and take over our grow bed here in just a little bit. But you can see everything else just starts to fill in. And we could actually pack this grow bed with a more dense population of lettuce. We haven't done that. You can do it because it receives nutrients. We're not taking any nutrient out of the grow bed. We're not depriving this of anything. So these plants, as long as they have space, they'll just grow nice, big, clean, green, and healthy. And you can harvest the leaves and let the plants regrow, which you're seeing over there, and it'll do that.
I see all kinds of little red bugs in here.
Yep.
Is that, like, do you have to clean those out of the system every so often?
Nope.
Or they're
naturally occurring in nature. They're actually, we like them because they help break down our coconut husk. We don't have any soil in our system.
Yeah,
and see these little guys? This is just like, this is truly nature. You're seeing nature doing what nature does best. So they live in the grow bed with our little worms as well. They don't like to come out. They don't go anywhere. They really like the little coconut husk and help to break that stuff down. That's really pretty much their food. So we don't have to treat anything because they love it. They actually help make our system more healthy. So just like you go out in nature and if you pull soil out, you see like some beneficial little guys that live in there. We have the same thing in our grow bed, and then we have the same thing in our compost bin. So what you don't see are the things that are not beneficial, like a lot of gnats and things like that. We're controlled environment agriculture, so we try and keep aphids and all of that stuff. You won't see aphids or anything in here. So we try and keep that to a minimum by making it controlled environment agriculture. Greenhouses, things like that, because the more efficient we make the system, the cleaner the system is, the more we can grow. And then we don't use any pesticides either, so we try and keep any bugs out. But those little guys, we love them. They help break down our little coconut husk.
What are some of the other plants that you have grown?
We have grown arugula, we've grown cucumbers, we've grown tomatoes, we've grown cabbage. We've grown, let me see, cantaloupe, strawberries.
Is there dandelion over here in the corner?
What's that?
Is there dandelion over here in the corner?
No.
Where is that?
No dandelions, no weeds.
What is that?
Oh, this is a different, that's lettuce.
Lettuce.
Uh-huh. And that's a gourmet lettuce that we were growing. Because that lettuce, that's something that would be more in line for like, for you guys, for chefs and things like that, because that lettuce is more delicate when we grow the gourmet. The gourmet lettuce is not designed to be harvested and kept in the refrigerator for a month. It's not going to last that long. But that's when we start growing like our oak leaf and things like that. And I will actually, I'll show you what we've got that's growing, and I'll send you a picture of some of our baby lettuce. That's gourmet, that I think you guys are really going to love. I mean, the color and the flavor, it's just absolutely tremendous. I'll show you a few pictures of those. But that's all lettuce. Stuff that we haven't done anything special to. Yeah, vegetables, great. And this is actually our fish tank, where we keep all of our tilapia. These are all of our bigger fish. These little guys, and they know me, so if I had food in my hand, they'd come to the surface, and they get to know you as you feed them. But they live in this tank. They're nice and happy. You can see they're not fighting like the other ones. You know? We feed them a nice, healthy, it's called Aquamax. It's a nice, healthy, organic food for them. So we don't have, what we say is no genetically modified organisms, no GMOs. Nothing here is genetically modified. So these fish are all nice, natural, healthy. You know, they're bred from eggs. There's no hormones that are added. So we have those guys there. Their food has no hormones added to it. So everything here is basically organic. Our seed is all organic seed. We have no hybrids in there. So one of the reasons why we do that is to prove to people that you can grow healthy food without having to genetically modify everything. And people want to know what's in their food. I want to know what's in my food. And a lot of the seafood that we get from overseas, you don't really know what it's been grown in or what's in it. And some of the stories that you've seen on the news lately talk about the type of water that those fish are grown in. Like our water is clean. You might say, well, it's a little bit golden or yellow. It's supposed to be that color. That means our system is working perfectly, because in nature what happens, we've got our compost worms that live in there, and the compost worms are eating our coconut husk. They don't have any soil. They eat that, which converts it into worm tea, which colors our water a little bit orange. So this tells us that things are working. So that's why it looks that way. But if you look at it, it's clear. It's clear. It's just got a little orange tinge to it, and we want it to have that.
So a system this size, like this 4x4, would feed a family of 4 maybe?
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Easy. We've got a family of 4 here, but we harvest so much food out of there that we actually can't eat it all. So we end up selling it and giving some to friends and family. My father-in-law, he comes over here. Every time they come over, he wants to know if we have lettuce ready to go. And he was one in the beginning who wasn't a believer that it would work. Now, what they found, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, what they found was, they'd buy lettuce from the store. My mother-in-law couldn't eat it. It would make her stomach messed up. And then we gave her some of our lettuce. No problem. Because there's nothing on it. There's nothing on it. There's nothing in it. There's no pesticides. There's no herbicides. Nothing like that. So it's all natural. Literally, we can take that lettuce right out of the grow bed. We sip it. We rinse it off, and we eat it. Because as you can see, we sub-irrigate. So we don't actually spray anything on the lettuce or on any of the food that we grow. All the water trickles down into the grow bed. So literally, when we harvest all the leaves off. We leave the root ball in, so we never contaminate anything. And, the kids over at King Middle School, they actually did scientific studies. They took lettuce out of their grow bed. They took lettuce out of the store. They put it in the environmental chamber. And they did actual scientific studies of any type of bacterial growth, deterioration. And they found out that our lettuce was superior to everything that they got out of the store. Fantastic. And those are kids' scientific experiments. Worked great. They also took their water over to UNO and had it tested. In the UNO, they used some huge, expensive machine to test our water to see if what we were saying was true. They have the printouts at UNO. They brought it back to the school to demonstrate to everybody that our water and our system is better than what's grown out in the fields. They proved it scientifically. And they have all the graphs to show what was in our water, which was only healthy things. Well, what's in your water? You must be using chemicals. UNO ran the spectrometer or whatever they ran with it. They did all the printouts to show exactly what was in our water. Nothing synthetic. All natural. So
amazing.
Scientific. Yeah, it's proven. So we don't, we say it's true. Prove it. Well, they did. There it is. So anyway, these are our tilapia. Now you might want to step back because they don't like being netted, so they're probably going to splash a little bit. We'll try and see if I can get one for you. Like I said, these guys can go to market in 6 to 9 months, depending upon what you're feeding them. We slow down their feeding because they're outgrowing their tank. We have such. I think we started with about I think we started with 89 fish, and I think we have about 85 or 86 left. So we've only lost maybe 4 or 5 fish during the entire growth season, which is incredible survivability. These guys are pretty tough. Another reason why we like to use tilapia, because we're growing for food, and these guys can kind of take a beating. They're pretty hardy fish, so some people probably aren't going to take care of their water the way they need to, probably won't take care of their system the way they need to. These little guys, they'll take high pH, they'll take almost what we call brackish water, and they'll still keep going. Low oxygen levels. The only thing they won't take is really cold weather. So they can't survive in Nebraska in the winter, which is why Nebraska Department of Fisheries is letting me get the chemical, or letting me get the commercial license to grow them. Boy, and they're also pretty smart. So they avoid the net. So they know how to run. Oh, no, he was in and he jumped out. Yeah, we were trying to net them one day. We were actually trying to catch fingerlings, and we had a tank divider. We had a tank divider in here, and there was just a tiny little space. And as we were trying to get it, one of the fish, he jumped out, jumped in between that little space into the other side of the tank. So this is a tilapia. I'll kind of see if we can get him out of this so you can see it. These little guys, a very good fish, very hardy, grows very fast.
Do you eat your own fish?
Oh, you betcha. Well, they're very smart. They know how to get out of net. Yeah, that's what he did. So this one I'm going to keep in the net. We have we have 2 kinds that are in here. We have one that's a white flesh, and I won't even we just call them white brook white. And then we have another one that's a blue tilapia. Let's see if we can catch one of those guys in here too.
He's about, how old are these?
These little guys, they're about 8 months now, 7 or 8
Okay,
months.
so they're almost ready for harvest.
Almost ready. And the only reason that we haven't let them we slowed down their feeding because they're getting so big in the tank. We didn't want to overload the tank. I mean, we could if we had another grow bed for filtration. So we've taken them down to 1 feeding a day. Otherwise, they would have already been at market with the rate that they were growing. We were feeding them 3 times a day. They grew really fast. So
That's neat that you can just grow that.
we just slowed them down to 1 feeding a day. And actually, they can go like, did you see that?
Yeah, that was a good jump.
Yeah, they know how to get away from that. Nope. They're smart.
What other kind of fish do you
You can grow pretty much. You can grow catfish. You can grow catfish. You can grow. People ask about trout. Trout's harder because trout needs really clean water. But you have people who are growing perch. You have people who are growing. Some people like bluegill. If you're not going to eat it, some people grow koi. The system doesn't care what type of fish you're growing. So, whatever like, but yeah, you can grow catfish. Catfish you can't stock as densely as you can like a tilapia. But here you see that. You can grow others. If you want to get a look, take a look at these guys, kind of what they look like. Yeah, they might get you wet.
That's okay.
No, he's not
No.
happy. He wants to go back in the tank.
Is that the white one?
This is the white.
Oh, okay.
And then this guy's a little bit darker. We have some that are a lot lighter than this, like any species. Some of them a little darker, some a little lighter. But they live in there and they're happy as long as I leave them alone and feed them. And we're going to get them a bigger tank here soon, so that we can get them a little bit bigger. And then we're going to breed these guys. I just had to wait for my commercial license from the state. Since this is a non-native species to Nebraska, we had to work with the Nebraska Department of Fisheries to get a license to propagate these guys within the state of Nebraska. I can have them here because I worked out an arrangement with them. They allowed us to bring them in, and then they send them out for testing. As long as I follow the rules that they set in place, and they allow me to keep the fish. So that's why we do things the way that we do, because we always want to be on the right side of the law. And we're trying to build an industry for Nebraska, and I don't want to mess that up by violating any of the laws or rules that they set up for me. So we do everything on the up and up. And they've been great to work with. So.
If you weren't doing the fish, do you have to have any kind of licensing for
No.
this?
If you're just going straight hydroponics, without the fish, it's hydroponics. And even with the fish, you don't need a license if you're growing something that's native in Nebraska. So you could grow bluegill. You could put bluegill in the tank, and they'd be okay. The only reason why we need a license, there's 2 reasons why you need a license. One, if you're going to sell the fish, then you need to have a license. And then there's an application online that you complete. You send to the Department of Fisheries. You pay a fine, or not a fine, you pay a fee, and then they tell you whether or not it's approved. And if it's approved, then you can grow them and sell them. If it's a non-native species, anything that you bring from outside of Nebraska, then you have to have a license to do that, and every importation has to be approved, which is why we're going to propagate our own. But these little guys, clean, green, healthy, they grow really fast. They convert their feed to meat very readily, so it's really nice. We don't start anything in dirt. So anything that you see here is coconut husk. And we do that for a couple reasons. We don't have the soil-borne pathogens that you get with dirt. And coconut husk is a very good medium for growing. It absorbs water. everything that you see from a coconut husk perspective, all of this brown stuff. They used to take the coconut, they take the husk off, and all of that would go into the landfill. When somebody decided to shred it and see if it would be a good growing media, they found out it's one of the best growing medias around. So, literally, we take these seeds, we put them in here, and with our seeds, we get germination in about 24 to 48 hours, depending upon what type of seed we're using. 24 to 48 hours. And you can see for yourself our germination percentage. This is a 72-cell tray. You know, every cell has seeds in it. Some have multiple seeds in it. This is how good the media is. It's incredible. And these little guys, this is arugula, so, you know, my hands are dirty, but if you want to pull some off, you know, we can taste it. We have arugula growing here with some more basil. We're going to take that and put that into the system. And this arugula, it grows. The flavor of everything that we grow is just incredible. It's so intense, you find that you need less of what you're growing. And like the basil there, the only reason why some of the leaves on the bottom look a little lighter is because they're not getting as much light because the top canopy is blocking them. But the basil, the flavor is intense. The arugula, the flavor is intense. Well, you know Jen over at Culinary Art, she tasted some of the arugula. I brought it to one of our meetings. She was shocked at how powerful it was, how much flavor is packed in a tiny little piece. That's another benefit. You have to use less of your spices, less of your herbs, because the flavor is so intense. And it grows nice and green and healthy like this. So, I mean, if we go through, we'll let you guys try some of the arugula as well. I haven't tried it yet. It's just getting ready to go into the system, but it's good stuff. And then we have more lettuce that's growing here. We talked about the kale. This is kale growing here, and then you can compare that with the kale that's actually in the system. Difference in color, and then we have some green peppers that we just started too. And then how much does it cost? You buy it online, you buy it in bulk, so it comes in like a block. So if you buy it online, it's going to show up, you're going to think that's not a lot, it's this block. But then you take it, you open the package, you put it in like a big tub, like those tub, the blue tub that we have down there. Normally what I do with my coconut is I drop it in there, you add water, and it'll fill that entire tub. And then it lasts for a long time. So that online, you know, depending on where you're buying it, $25, something like that. It's not very expensive at all. Okay. So this is something that I think as chefs and people who enjoy food, this is something new that we started. This is some of our gourmet lettuce. And I'll send you a picture of what it looks like when it actually gets out of the seedling stage. We do it as baby lettuce. The color, the flavor, just the look and feel when you're plating your food. If you want to make a nice salad, this is one reason why I wanted to grow this, to see what would happen with it. When we grew this and put it on a plate, it was incredible. The flavor, because we added in some of our green leaves, some of our red. We added, mixed in here, we had some oak leaf. And that salad, oh my gosh. From the look, you know, we eat with our eyes before, our eyes and our nose before we even. Incredible. You see that, it makes you want to eat. It made me hungry. But I'll show you this, I'll send you some pictures. But this is the new product that we have that was growing.
And then you just request about microgreens.
So quick question, how much does a system like this cost to make?
Yeah, it depends on what materials you use. So, I mean, if you want to go with something really small, and you just use readily available materials, you want to use like some pea gravel instead of, you know, hydrogen. Hydrogen is a more expensive material. You could build something like this, $1,200, maybe depending upon which materials you use. But then all the way up to 40 grand. You know, if you're using LEDs, it's a little more expensive. I think the one at Metro, they want to use LED lights with a couple different materials. They want to use an automatic feeder, stuff like that, an aerator. So that system is a little more expensive than what we have here. You know, this is built PVC, Lowe's, Home Depot, and we don't even have an aerator in the system. If you know what those are, aerators provide oxygen for the plants or for the fish. So to save money on the aerator, actually what we did was we bought a little more powerful pump, and then we basically took some PVC, drilled some holes in a cap, tapped off of our pump, and made an aerator out of that, which saves money. With the Metro system, since I don't think they're going to have somebody watching it as closely as I watch this, because your aerator can become clogged as well, like any system, you have to watch it pretty close. I think we'll put an aerator on that system in Metro to make sure no one's around, but the fish still have oxygen. So over here, someone's always around, and then we monitor the system so we know if it's bad. So that drives up the cost a little bit when you're doing aerators, LED lights, things like that, which Metro's going to do. But if you're not going to use any of that, and you're just going to go with like a pea gravel and just use very basic materials, then you can get it down to $1,200 or less. So if you want to do it, depends on how big it is.
How much does it cost to actually run the electricity every month?
You know, we use very minimal electricity. These are all T5 lights. These are standard fluorescent lights. You don't need that many lights. We just like that many because we have a lot of plants. We want a lot of growth. So you could actually shoot one in the middle of a shop light, So in our pump, it's actually only, I think it's 32 watt pump. So we keep it very low. Now, if you're going to use metal halide light, sodium lights, things like that, they draw a lot of juice. 400,000 watt lights, things like that, they draw a lot of juice. But our goal is to keep the price minimum. So I think for us, our bill maybe went up $25, maybe something like that.
Would the LED be more efficient over time? You would have to replace the bulbs or something.
That's what they say. I have pictures I can show you what we do in here. I'll send those to you as well to see how effective all this is, even in a raised bed environment.
The smell is fantastic on this basil.
Can build a 2x2 or 4x4
Some of
raised
the best
bed.
I've ever smelled.
We do that, and we put some, compost in there, and we put some things in, and it goes nice and healthy. Another reason why we do that is because there are some areas where the ground is contaminated with lead, so everybody can't grow in the ground. So we teach people how to make a raised bed and then grow in the raised bed, so then you're not affected by any of the I think the one that next we're going to put a little closer to those so people can see it. Our guys, we keep the coverage so you can move down. Whenever we go in the box of water, we're going to get one water, right from this that happens to move you, keep you on the flow. It's working from that. I'll just stop there and gather it. There's a tank where we keep our stuff with this. We just look back at the fish that get nice and they're happy. So when we're dealing with the safe environment, we're dealing with some of the schools.
It's
pretty far.
I know, I've had it before, and I'm like, yeah, I don't see the big deal.
The basil almost has like a cinnamon taste.
That's good.
Right. That's what we do with it. And we grow different types depending upon what
Wow.
taste we're trying to
You get
accomplish.
that? You get that buttery?
I picked the basil. Did you try the basil? That's intense. The basil's really intense.
That's the arugula I've ever had. I ate the whole week. I don't want
See, I talk and talk and talk, and then I say,
Give it a shot.
try it for yourself. You let me know. I can't.
Oh, wow.
Strong for you?
Whoa.
But I ate it. I love basil. But
That's very intense. Wow.
Really big salad of that.
No.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
People have to pile a lot of stuff in there because it doesn't have any flavor.
Well, my kids always have
Oh,
so
you
much
need
like
one
ranch
leaf.
dressing, like a
With
half
a
a
little
bottle.
citrus on it.
And if you're growing the
You're
right
good.
stuff,
honey vinaigrette.
Yeah,
this is what food is supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
this is the coconut husk, right?
That's the coconut husk. Everything, we don't have any soil.
The mind's already going on what I must do.
Right.
Like I said, and that basil that you see in there is even overgrown. We typically harvest that sooner.
That's really big. It's fantastic.
Well, with our basil, lose a little bit of flavor. Anything
that has a good-
our lettuce, once it gets really big, it doesn't lose its flavor. So,
He said no.
It has a good like tang to the tongue.
It was just.
It does. Like I was trying to figure out how to describe it, but it's like
That's exactly how I
it's like
like this.
it has such a good yeah.
Even lobster has lobster.
I heard this man.
we're looking at growing some different things. We're looking at growing some
Talk with
freshwater
the-
prawns.
Yeah, it does.
We're growing that back in 1999, 2000. We were doing that in little hog barns. So we're looking at bringing back some freshwater prawn. And I'll tell you, the freshwater prawn, the flavor, when we harvest that, because we harvest it right out of the tank, we do tank side harvest, it is so fresh. You throw that in a pan with a little bit of, geez, you're going to go garlic or whatever
Hey,
you're
it'd
going
be
to do
like
with that.
sushi grade almost at that
That's
point.
exactly right.
Yeah.
The flavor's just incredible when you do the freshwater prawn.
Is the tilapia different than the store-bought?
Tilapia, yeah.
Yeah.
Never had tilapia.
One thing that you run into with tilapia that's store-bought is you don't know the water that it was grown in,
Yeah.
and so you get a lot of the flavor of whatever they were grown in. That's what's in the fish.
Yeah.
And with ours, it's all natural. We don't have contaminated water. We don't have mud, stuff like that, so you don't get that flavor.
Right.
So it readily takes to whatever you want to add to it, and you don't get that off flavor, which gives tilapia a really bad name because people have had really bad tilapia.
Yeah.
No, it tastes terrible. It's muddy. It's dirty. That's why we grow this. There's a difference between what comes out of this tank and what you'll get from the store. And once again, most of what comes from the store is from overseas. You don't know where it's been, but you're eating it, and it tastes terrible because it's probably grown in.
We Dan Barber and TED Talks, did we discuss that? And I don't think I ever watched the video that's on the
Yeah.
posted,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
he's found out his fish was being fed chicken.
Chicken, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there's some fish that come from overseas where they have chicken coop on top of the fish Okay?
Yeah.
Heard that.
yeah.
And that's what the fish eat.
Yeah.
Right?
What store are you going to try and sell yours to?
We already have people that are
Trying
asking
to
about it. Yeah, no.
Going to be.
Hy-Vee, Whole Foods, places like that have already started asking. You know, part of Whispering
Cool.
Roots, the nonprofit, is to go into the food desert areas, but then we're also realists. We know that in order to be sustainable, you have to be able to sell what you're growing. And the reason why the stores are interested in what we're growing is because they know what's in it, which is nothing. Right now, they can't guarantee if they get fish that comes through the door, they can't guarantee that they know where it came from and what it was fed and what type of water it lives in.
Right.
In our systems, they're going to be able, they can walk in and look at it. And, you know, on a more national level, we're also looking at biosecurity, we're looking at food security, so that, you know, food's not being trucked in from outside the country where terrorists have the potential to poison. This is something we always talk about because that's becoming a bigger interest in the eyes of the government in terms of how can we secure our food supply. That's going to be the next frontier. So we're showing them how to do that by growing our own and doing it in a nice, respectful
I think it's cool too how your house, and especially this area, doesn't smell like fish.
It doesn't, does it?
No.
Not at all.
That's one of the secrets, right? Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. That's how you know whether or not you're doing things right. And same thing with our, you know, our compost bin. It doesn't stink. It smells like, if you smell it, it smells like soil. That's what it should smell like. If you're doing composting and it stinks, something's wrong. It should smell like that. It should have a nice earthy smell. The same thing with the fish tank. The system, this is nothing but a huge biofilter. And if it's functioning properly, then you don't get that fishy odor. And then if you come in and something smells really bad, if you come in and the room is terrible and it just smells awful, then you know something's wrong with the system. Now you're always going to have, it's farming, right? And they're fish. So you're always going to have a little bit of fishiness, but it shouldn't stink. And if it does, something's wrong. That's one thing I tell people when you come in, when I come down in the morning, I listen, I look, and I smell. That's what I do. That tells me, I listen for my pump. If something's wrong, that'll tell me it's wrong. If I don't hear water running the way it should, it tells me something's wrong. I look at the plants, and they'll tell me whether or not they're having issues. You know, if it's not as green as it should be. And then, you know, I listen, I look, and I smell. If I smell something that's off, then I know either the compost bin would be bad or the fish tank's wrong. So, these are the guys that are a little unhappy with me right now because I know I took your aerator off. So I'll put that back on.
So how long before your vegetables are ready for sale?
We can turn our vegetables in about, depending upon what you're growing.
I want some of your arugula.
We turn our vegetables anywhere from 25 to 42 days, depending upon what you're growing. So lettuce that would normally take, say, 50, 52 days, we can turn that in about 42 days. I mean, you see the basil? It's huge. So if it's baby lettuce, we can turn our baby lettuce in 25 days. So maybe about 3 weeks. Depending on what you're growing.
Do people just call you and tell you what they want, or do they give a
Some
website?
people would just show up. Yeah. And I mean, you know, the other night we were sitting here because my wife does bling. You know, she blings all these clothes, and she's got a bunch of friends, and she says, "Oh, Shauna's coming over to get lettuce." Some of her friends just send her a text. People just show up. Hey, come in to get some lettuce. You know? Okay. And then they go, "Do you have any lettuce ready?" But yeah, my wife at work. My wife eats this every day. So now she sells lettuce at work. And this was designed just to be a research project initially, and it turned into what it's become today, which is two full-blown operations, the nonprofit piece and then a for-profit piece. So when we start selling it, now all we're doing is getting ready to put up our larger commercial grade site, and then we're going to be selling because it's such a good product. I didn't want to go to market before we were ready. And the way that I actually have been selling it and talking to people about it is I just put some of it in a bucket, or I put some of it in a little vase, and I go and I meet with people, and it's not even fancy. And I sit down and talk about, here's what we're growing, and I let them taste it. And we've had a great response to it. And because we're also sustainable, we're trying to be responsible, you know, business people, and also we're trying to feed hungry people. No matter what I do at the end of the day, if I'm not feeding hungry people, then I haven't done what I said I was going to do. I haven't said, you know, my goal when I set out was to feed hungry people. Right. That doesn't mean that we need to be poor when we do it, you know, because we can't feed hungry people if we can't pay our own bills.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if there's not some component where food is going into these communities who don't have access, then I've gotten away from what I promised everybody I would do, and I'm not going to do that. And I even told people who asked me to, you know, go into business with them, this is first. I have to feed hungry people. Because I'm not going to look back and say I should have done more. You know, a lot of people do. So.
Well, and also, too, there's a certain sense of pride within the community when you can say, this is Omaha grown, this is what we can do here, you know. And especially for stores, that's a huge selling point, saying, hey, we grew this here in Omaha.
Oh, you bet. And one of the things that we are not going to do when we go into these communities, our goal is not to go in a community and take over, because you see a lot of they go into a community that's already been basically abandoned, and they take advantage by coming in, taking over, and all that money leaves the community. That's not our goal. Our goal is to go into the community and teach people how to do this, and then we keep moving on, and then they run their own system. Then they have jobs that stay in the community, the money stays in the community, there's a sense of pride and ownership, and that's how you rebuild a community. One of the reasons why we're called Whispering Roots, the whispering piece, that's for people, communities whose voices are never heard. That's the whispering piece, and then the roots, that came from saying that a solid root foundation, a solid root ball is the foundation for any strong community and plan. That's why we say whispering roots. That's where it all came from. So. And that's basically, that's the system. That's what we've got. Any other questions? I hope you enjoyed your tour. Hope you enjoyed what you tasted. By all means, please tell people about us. And then as we get bigger, we have opportunities for you to come work and intern with us. We'll be happy to have folks come out and work on our systems. And we're going to be literally in the community.
Your business card?
We were just talking about that.
Or a webpage.
Webpage is
Yeah, you can go to whisperingroots.org. That's our webpage for our nonprofit. And then in a couple weeks, we're going to update that with the project from King and all the pictures that they've been sending for that. And we also just won 2 awards. We won the Friend of the Environment Award sponsored by Whole Foods for Earth Day. We didn't know that we won that. That was a surprise. And then we also won an award from the Doris Buffett Foundation based upon the work that we're doing in the community. That was another surprise. It was great. Somebody came in and analyzed our organization. They evaluated us and did a huge write-up and went and I guess there was a big debate about it. They debated over which organization should get the money, and Whispering Roots won, which was fantastic. There's a second place group as well, but we were unanimous winners, which was great. And we hadn't even got out and solicited any of that. So
Well, we gave you